Now it's time to get into the verses of Cotton Crop Blues. There are 3 verses where James Cotton sings and Pat Hare is playing fills behind him. Rather than go through each verse note for note, which would take us a long time, take me a long time to memorize and be able to play it perfectly. Instead, I've got it tabbed out all the way through. But in this video part of the lesson, I'm just going to show you some of the main ideas that you hear throughout the verses. Go in one verse at a time. So let's start with the first verse. And almost all these licks are played in the first position blues box. They are all played in the first position blues box. There's some chords, there's some double stops, some single string ideas, some things that I'll show you along the way. So the first lick that he plays, as he starts the very first verse, is this little lick. And he winds up the introduction, and he plays that over the beginning of the vocal verse. And all he's doing, this is the first position D bar chord. I'm taking the 10th fret of the 3rd string, and I've got my first finger on that, and then I'm taking my 2nd string, or my 2nd finger, and doing this little hammer-on pull-off thing. Just picking once, and then doing that. And I'm just coming down and up on the 11th fret of the 3rd string. And that's something he does again, I think the last verse, to kick off the last verse of the song. The first single string lick, and throughout the tune he plays these single string licks. That's what I'm not going to show you every one of those because you just have to listen. But when he plays the single string verses, they're almost entirely using, within the first position blues box. And he uses a lot of bends and some other things in there, but it's not really hard to understand what he's playing. So that first lick, got that tabbed out for you. Now after he plays the first lick, he does something which is another trademark of Pat Hare's playing, is he leads into the 4 with this distorted 9th chord. And when you hear that in the tune, he's playing a 2nd position 9th chord. He's winding up on the G9. So let's get that one down. First finger on the 9th fret of the 4th string. 2nd finger is on the G, 10th fret of the 5th string. And then my ring finger is flattened out on the 10th fret, getting the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings. And he's leading into that from an A flat 9th to the G. And if you listen to that very first verse, you get a really good example of something that Pat Hare does a lot, which is combine the single string runs with the powerful 9th chords. Something like this. And that is an idea that you'll hear him use quite a bit throughout the song, not just in the first verse. And then for a lot of the single string fills, an idea that's really important, we've already seen this in the introduction to the song, is when he plays over the 4, he does this same lick to lead into almost every fill that he plays like this. He's going to start on the 10th fret of the 2nd string, hammer on to the 12th fret of the 2nd string, and go to the 10th fret of the 1st string, and then to the 13th fret. So that little lick, you'll hear him use throughout the tune. Something like that all the time. So basically you've got the same notes within that blues box shape that he's using for almost every fill, but he mixes it up. He plays them differently. He uses bends in different places. He picks it differently. And as we'll see, he throws in some double stops and other things. So that idea, we saw that in the introduction, and he mixes it up. He might play this, or something like this. And just there's endless ways that you can be creative and mix that up. But it seems like every time there's a 4 chord, he's starting it off with that same idea, that same lick, playing over that, which is really a G shape, G 2nd position bar chord. something he does quite a bit. All right, and then into the first verse, there's another kind of a triple stop thing that he does based on the D chord. So if we're in the first position, D, blues box, we can play our D chord like a bar with a bar, or we can play it with an F shape. And that F-shaped D chord is the basis for a lick that he does in the first verse. He does this again a couple times later. And what he does, it sounds to me like he's just using two fingers. First finger on the 10th fret of the first and second strings, second finger on the 11th fret of the third string. And he's playing this lick like that, where he's just strumming quickly up and down while holding that chord. And so I've got that chord with two fingers. You could also throw in the 4th string. And again, on the recording, I can't tell whether he's playing it with just 2 fingers, 3 strings, or if he's getting that 4th string. It's kind of hard to tell. Either way sounds pretty good. And he comes out of it with some kind of lick, which I have tabbed out for you. So that's an idea that you hear. Looking through the first verse, another idea that he uses as part of his fills are these double stops. And in the first position blues box, you've got double stops on the 2nd and 3rd strings at the 10th fret, 12th fret, into the 13th fret. And he does these licks. And that's one he does as a turnaround at the end of the first verse. But he also uses them as part of his fill licks during the main parts of the verses. He does that in the first verse, and then he does it again later. You can figure these out pretty easily. I'm going to show you the little turnaround that he does at the end of the first verse. And he gets to the 5, the 4, and then when he gets to the 1 for the turnaround, he plays something like this. And that's a cool idea, and that's a very typical Pat Hare thing. So he's starting on the 10th fret, double stop, 2nd and 3rd string, 12th fret, 13th fret, slides it in, back to the 12th fret, 10th fret, 12th fret of the 4th string. So it's like this. And then he walks on the 5th and 4th strings from the 12th fret of the 5th string, which is your A, to the 10th fret of the 4th string, 12th fret. And he throws in this little lick. Got my first finger on the double stop at the 10th fret, 2nd and 3rd strings, but then he takes his second finger and hammers on to the 13th or 11th fret of the 3rd string. And he's picking both the 3rd and 2nd strings. Like that. So the whole lick. And then he wraps it up with another one of these second position 9th chord slides from the A or B flat 9 to the A9. And so in the first verse, you've got most of the ideas that you're going to hear him use in different ways throughout the song. You've got the 9th chord, got the single string run, combined with the 9th chord. Sometimes he just plays the chord without the slide, but he's going to be ending up, when he plays the 4, he's going to play the G9 chord. Got the double stop, that kind of idea, and then you've got this one lick over the F shape. Everything else he plays, all the single string runs are within the first position blues box. Now looking to the second verse, on my tab, I'm looking for anything different. It's just really more of the same. Single string runs, he's got some double stops, he throws in the 9th chords. There's really nothing different that he does in the second verse, which takes us, let me keep looking. There is one thing he does in the second verse, which is a little different, and that's the way he plays one of the chords. He gets to the 5, and he does the A9th, and then he plays it. Kind of stays on that A9th, and he does the, arpeggio thing where he's holding the second position, A ninth chord, and then he's picking up, and it sounds like he goes 12 all the way through the chord, and then plays it 2 more times before going back into the tune and the turnaround. So this little lick, he's just keeping the chord, and then he's upstroking, sounds to me, from the first string all the way to the 5th string. Again, it's hard to hear with the distortion and the rest of the band exactly what he's doing, but that's what I'm hearing. And he's kind of lightly strumming that A ninth chord a couple more times before he goes to the 4 and plays this. Something like that. So that's a, whoops, another idea that you hear in the fills, but that's in the second verse. He only does that one time. All right, the third verse. I'm skipping the solo. We're going to come back to that and do that note for note. So before we wrap up this section of the lesson, let me take a look at the third verse. And I really don't see anything different that he does in the last verse. It's a lot of the same stuff. The single string fills, ninth chords, a couple double stop, and what's the other thing? He does this lick again. So those are the only kind of unusual things that he does besides playing over that blues box with single string stuff. So that is really what you need to know to play over the verses, or to play the fills with the verses from Cotton Crop Blues. Again, rather than take all the time to go through every single phrase, I've got it tabbed out for you. And what you should do is take the tab with the original recording and hear it, because my tab is pretty bad. I'm not a good tab writer. And I don't know how to write like the accents of the bends and things like that very well. So I've just pretty much got a map for you to know what he's playing and kind of how he's playing it. Again, use your ear and listen to it. But know, if you know those few ideas, the ninth chords and the first position blues box and the double stops and the F chord, you should be able to figure out everything that he does there. And again, I wouldn't try to figure this out note for note to play it note for note. I try to figure it out just to understand, that some ideas about how to approach playing a solo or playing fills. It gives you different things you can think of when you're playing your stuff. And that's it. When I come back, we will do the solo for Cotton Crop Blues, and we will do the end tag, and that will be it. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. If I left something out, made some mistakes, tell me, and I'll try to fix it. See you again soon.